Driving a commercial motor vehicle, or a CMV, is a great profession. It offers the independence of the open road, along with a sense of pride that you're performing a duty that is absolutely essential to American commerce. But the job comes with many responsibilities. The greatest responsibility of the professional CMV driver is safety, for yourself, for anyone riding with you, and for others on the road. Safety starts with basic driving skills and safe driving habits. But there's more to it. It requires good health and a sharp mind, so you know you're driving at your best even when others on the road may not be. In this program, we'll discuss the critical topics that every commercial motor vehicle driver should be familiar with. Starting with the fact that federal motor carrier safety regulations mandate that drivers meet basic qualifications, including being in good physical health. The physical qualification requirement is so important that you must carry a medical certificate at all times, stating that you're physically qualified to drive a CMV. Driver wellness covers how to stay well, so you meet the physical qualification requirements and live a longer, healthier life. Next is probably the #1 enemy of every CMV driver: fatigue. You'll learn how to avoid this dangerous but all too common condition by using fatigue prevention strategies and following the hours of service regulations. And finally, one last vital element of safety: whistleblower protection. We'll talk about your right and responsibility to report vehicle safety violations, to refuse to drive in unsafe conditions, and to refuse to violate vehicle safety laws or regulations, including hours of service. Whistleblower protection helps you exercise this right without fear of retaliation. Your chosen profession is a rewarding one, but it's also demanding. Following these universal driving basics makes it safer for everyone. To be eligible to drive a commercial motor vehicle, federal law requires you to meet the basic qualifications of a safety-conscious driver. Just what are those qualifications? Part 391 of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, or FMCSR, says you're qualified to drive a CMV if you're at least 21 years old, you can read, write, and speak English well enough to converse, understand traffic signs, respond to official inquiries, and fill out required reports. You have experience or training to safely operate the type of vehicle you drive. You're physically qualified to drive. You have a commercial motor vehicle operator's license. You've disclosed accidents and traffic violations to your employer. And you've passed a road test. In addition, you have to be able to locate, secure, and properly distribute whatever you're transporting, whether that's cargo or people. Of all the requirements you have to meet, being physically qualified to drive a CMV is among the most important. You have to be able to monitor complex driving situations and make quick decisions, to manipulate an oversized steering wheel, and to maneuver a multi-ton vehicle in crowded areas. And that's just the driving part. If you drive a truck, chances are you also have to couple and uncouple trailers, load and unload cargo, lift heavy tarps, and much more. Or if you drive a motor coach or school bus, you may have to handle heavy luggage, help disabled passengers, lift wheelchairs. The list goes on. The bottom line is, anyone who thinks driving a CMV isn't physically demanding has obviously never done it. CMV drivers also know that stress comes with the job. Rotating work schedules, long hours, extended time away from family and friends. If you're lucky, that's all you're dealing with. But no one's lucky enough to avoid occasional bad weather or less than perfect road conditions. Top it all off with excessive vibration, noise, and temperature extremes, and the stress can really get to you. But you can't let it. That's why you need to be in good physical and mental condition.
A person that's physically fit is generally more alert because they have less health problems. And it's easier to stay awake, it's easier to be more alert.
A driver has to be vigilant all the time. And so if a driver isn't feeling well, or is suffering from something that is really taking some of the alertness away, that can be a fairly dangerous situation at some times for drivers.
Just what are the physical qualifications for driving a CMV? They're spelled out in Part 391, Subpart E of the FMCSR, and include guidelines in the areas of hearing and vision, blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular health, respiratory function, epilepsy, psychiatric health, and alcoholism, some of which we'll talk about in a moment. As we said earlier, you're required to carry a medical examiner certificate verifying your medical condition at all times while operating a CMV. In fact, outside of your operator's license, this is the only certificate the regulations require you to carry, so you can see how critical your physical health is to your ability to drive. Federal rules require that you be examined by a licensed medical examiner who's familiar with the regulations, and that you get re-examined at least once every 24 months. You'll also need to be re-examined if your ability to perform normal duties has been impaired by physical or mental disease or injury. One of the more common standards you need to meet during the examination covers vision and hearing. You may not recognize the name, but you've all been familiar with a Snellen chart since grade school. To meet the vision qualifications, you have to score at least 20/40 in each eye on your Snellen test, with or without corrective lenses. Your field of vision, or the ability to see side to side, has to be at least 70 degrees in each eye. And you have to be able to recognize the colors of traffic signals. The hearing standards are even simpler. You need to be able to hear a whisper from 5 feet away in at least one ear.
This is 5 feet.
With or without a hearing aid. Another common physical condition you'll be tested for is hypertension, better known as high blood pressure. Do you have high blood pressure? You wouldn't be alone if you did. It's estimated that 1 in 4 American adults has it. But high blood pressure can be dangerous. If you have high blood pressure or are being treated for it, your medical examiner will require you to be examined more frequently than every 24 months. For example, if your blood pressure is between 140/90 and 159/99, you may need to be rechecked annually. If your blood pressure is between 160/100 and 179/109, you'll be treated to bring it down to the normal range. Plus, you may be checked again within 3 months and then rechecked annually. If your blood pressure is 180/110 or greater, you may not be certified to drive a CMV until it's reduced to 140/90 or below. And then you may need to be recertified every 6 months. The regulations spell out other conditions that exclude drivers from service as well. These include conditions that interfere with the ability to operate a vehicle safely, such as diabetes requiring insulin control, epilepsy or other diseases that would cause loss of consciousness, heart disease with an elevated risk of heart failure, a current clinical diagnosis of alcoholism, or use of certain drugs, including illegal drugs, amphetamines, narcotics, or any habit-forming drugs, unless a prescribing physician advises that it won't interfere with your ability to drive. These are just examples. Refer to Section 391.41 of the FMCSR for more details. Beyond physical conditions, there are several situations that would disqualify a driver from operating a CMV. These include having his or her license revoked, suspended, or otherwise denied, or being convicted of a disqualifying offense. Examples of disqualifying offenses include driving under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance, possession of an illegal substance, leaving the scene of an accident, or committing a felony involving the use of a CMV. Again, these are just examples. For a complete listing of disqualifiers, see Section 391.15 of the FMCSR. In the next section, we'll talk about ways to get in shape and stay in shape so you can meet federal regulations for physical well-being and enjoy a healthier lifestyle overall. In the last section, we talked about federal regulations governing driver health. Even if there were no such regulations, getting and staying fit is a good idea. Ask most people, and they'll tell you that having their health is one of the things they value most in life. And to a large degree, the quality of your health is up to you. Eating right and exercising pay long-term dividends in better health, more energy, and a greater sense of well-being. It's also important to monitor your health and undergo periodic physical exams to identify and treat potential problems before they become serious. Why is good health so important to a CMV driver? We said it before, your job is a stressful one. When you're behind the wheel, you need to be constantly alert. You're under pressure to pick up and deliver no matter what the conditions. Add in the loneliness over-the-road drivers can feel when they're away from family and friends, and you have a recipe for trouble. Your best defense is to take care of yourself.
Well, for one thing, it comes back to his physical standards. If they don't maintain their health, they're not going to have a CDL very long.
Well, that's probably the most difficult part of the truck driving job is eating right, eating the right amounts, eating the right foods, when you eat, and watching your weight. It's very difficult on the road to watch your diet. Many drivers or experienced drivers pack fruit, eat at the right times, don't eat too much before you park. And again, get whatever exercise you can. Obviously, there's limits to when you can exercise, but picking those opportunities and using it is important.
Some of the most basic measures of good health are blood cholesterol, blood pressure, and weight. These are each measured and recorded by the person examining you for your medical certificate. So it's important to understand what levels of each are considered healthy. It's also important to understand what you can do to control each of them. Let's start with blood cholesterol. So, what is blood cholesterol anyway? It's a fatty, waxy substance in your blood, and if you have too much of it, it forms a brittle substance called plaque that can build up and cause your blood vessels to narrow. The problem is, you don't even know it's happening until it begins to restrict blood flow to organs like your heart and brain, which of course can lead to heart attacks and strokes. Do you know whether your cholesterol is in the healthy range or not? Compare your cholesterol level to this chart from the National Cholesterol Education Program. As you can see, there are two kinds of cholesterol: LDL, which is the bad cholesterol that causes buildup, and HDL, which is the good cholesterol that removes buildup. It's best if your total cholesterol is under 200, your LDL cholesterol is under 130, and your HDL cholesterol is over 50. The good news is, if you have high cholesterol, it can be lowered. The National Cholesterol Education Program recommends taking these 4 steps, but check with your doctor before you do. First, minimize the amount of animal and dairy products you eat. These can contribute to high cholesterol, where fruits and vegetables will not. Be mindful to watch both your fat and calorie intake. Studies show that cholesterol can be lowered 15 to 30% with the proper diet. Second, don't smoke or drink if you can avoid it. And if you can't stop, at least cut down. But your safest bet is to stop. Third, add activity and exercise to your day. This can be as simple as brisk walking, anything that will get your heart pumping. Fourth, consider taking a nutritional supplement. Several are available that have been shown to reduce cholesterol, but again, check with your doctor before taking any. Now, let's move on to blood pressure. We said earlier that high blood pressure is dangerous, which is no surprise to anyone. We all know that high blood pressure can lead to heart disease and increase the chances for stroke. It can also lead to kidney disease. Like cholesterol, if you haven't checked your blood pressure lately, you may not even know you have a problem. There may be no warning signs, but once you develop high blood pressure, you may end up battling it your whole life. Your blood pressure should be below 140/90 to be in the healthy range. But how do you keep it in that range? Once again, a healthy lifestyle comes into play. It's important to approach the things that contribute to high blood pressure sensibly. That includes watching your weight, exercising, eating a diet that includes fruits, vegetables, and low-fat dairy products, eating less salt, quitting smoking, and drinking in moderation or not at all. These healthy lifestyle habits should keep your blood pressure under control. But sometimes a healthy lifestyle isn't enough. If that's the situation you face, consult your doctor for medication that can help. We've talked about cholesterol, we've talked about blood pressure. You've probably noticed that both of these are influenced by your weight. It's easy to gain weight as you age, simply because your body needs fewer calories to function. If you don't cut calories or increase activity as you get older, you'll gain weight. Believe me, I know. But being overweight contributes to so many health problems. Not just cholesterol and high blood pressure, but diabetes, back pain, dangerous joint stress, and it makes you tire more easily. Watching your weight is one of the best things you can do to keep yourself healthy. We know it's hard to eat right when you're on the road, but more and more restaurants are adding healthy foods to cater to the growing number of people who want to do something about their weight.
I do grocery shopping before I leave on the road, and I always fill my cooler full of good stuff. I don't stop at truck stops at night and fill my tummy at a buffet till I can't eat anymore and then just go plop myself into bed here and sleep. You know, I eat good things, small meals, small portion sizes, so I don't gain a lot of weight and stay healthy.
On the road, I try to stay away from the fast food, the fried stuff. I try to eat, at the truck stops, I try to eat salads along with meat and vegetables.
When I first started driving, there was a temptation when they'd stop at places like McDonald's, etc., to eat the Big Mac and the big meal. And if you eat too much, you tend to get tired more quickly. So it's better to eat smaller meals and to make sure you have some liquids with you when you're driving.
Whether you're on the road or at home, it's important to eat right. That includes eating at least 3 meals a day. That's right. Skipping meals isn't healthy, and it makes weight loss difficult. In order to stimulate your metabolism and burn more calories, you need to eat regularly. Even better, eat smaller meals more frequently rather than a few large ones. Eating right also includes having at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Watching how much fat you're consuming, especially saturated fat, which is a major contributor to high cholesterol. Moderating your sugar, salt, and sodium intake, and limiting the amount of alcohol you consume. This all may sound like a broken record, but it's important information if you want to get or stay healthy. It can also be hard to exercise when you're on the road, but it can be done.
I exercise when I get done driving. Generally the truck stops are big enough that I can get out and just do 30 minutes of walking around the truck stop. Just doing something to get the heart pumping a little bit. I mean, doing something is better than doing nothing.
As far as exercise, we don't get a whole lot of exercise, we don't. And walking around your truck, parking further away from truck stops, some people even carry their bicycles along. They stop and they go for a little bicycle ride. Some people with rollerblades, all kinds of things to get some exercise. As you know, we sit in the seat, we don't get a lot.
Just simply getting out of their truck every 5-6 hours, and if nothing else, walking around their truck, and getting some of the blood kind of flowing back in the lower portions of their body. So there are things that drivers can do.
Here are some simple workout tips you can make part of your daily routine. Think about bringing weights or a chest pull spring exerciser along on the road, and use them 3 or 4 times a day, 10 minutes at a time. Make sure you know how to use them properly, though, to get the greatest benefit. Park far away from buildings to add walking to and from your vehicle part of your routine. In fact, the one thing you can do anywhere is walk. Watch for fitness centers along your route and plan time to stop in for a workout. These are just a few ideas. You can probably think of a dozen more that will add healthy but simple activity to your day. It's also important to stay mentally fit and learn to cope with your emotions when driving a CMV. Coping strategies include practicing safe, consistent, and dependable driving habits, mentally preparing yourself to meet stressful conditions like heavy traffic around a metro area, knowing your own reactions and being honest about them, and being aware that stress and emotions often surface when your body is tired.
We always tell our drivers the ability to communicate. That's one of the things I talk to them about before they get assigned the truck. One of the things that creates a ton of stress in this industry, if they don't communicate, they get told something by their operations person they don't like. They need to say something about it. They need to point out that, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be a regional driver. I'm not supposed to go to California. That right there is probably one of the largest causes of stress, is just communications between operations and drivers. And if the driver needs to understand if things aren't going the way that he's expecting them to, he should say something to somebody.
I tell the new drivers when they come in that if you have an issue, pick up the phone, call, get the issue over, deal with the things that you have to deal with, and take care of the things that you can take care of.
A lot of times I'll get out of the truck, I'll be so mad about something or anything that I will yell at the truck, kick a tire, or just walk around the truck and think about it and just walk it off, relieve the stress.
To help yourself relax, try these techniques. Stop the vehicle if you can, get out and stretch, and exercise briefly. If you can't pull over, try breathing deeply and regularly as you go down the road. Listen to music. Try to recognize the things you can't change, like the driving habits of others, and learn to accept them. The final aspect of wellness that we'll cover has to do with alcohol and drug abuse. As we said in the last section, driving, drugs, and drinking are a deadly combination. Don't do it. If you're under the influence, you shouldn't be anywhere near a CMV, let alone driving it. Professional drivers can do their jobs without controlled substances or alcohol to help them stay awake or keep their edge. Part of being a professional is knowing when it's safe to drive. If you're tired or stressed, take care of it in a healthful way. Once you start the cycle of drug or alcohol use, there's no easy way to stop it. Don't start, or if you think you have a problem, seek professional help. It's important to know the Department of Transportation's drug and alcohol prohibitions and your company's individual policy and abide by them. It can save your life and the lives of countless others. Now it's time to turn our attention to one of the top causes of motor vehicle accidents, driver fatigue. Driving tired is something all drivers experience at one time or another, and probably fairly often. But when you're responsible for a 20-ton rig or a busload of children at 55 miles per hour, you need to be in control of yourself and your vehicle every second. When you're fatigued, you're not in control, no matter what you might think. In fact, in extreme cases, fatigue can cause your brain to shut down involuntarily. You may experience visual distortion, reduced decision-making and problem-solving abilities, inhibited muscle response and coordination, reduced reaction time, inability to concentrate, or irritability, exhaustion, and giddiness. Do these conditions sound familiar? They're the same things you might see in people under the influence of alcohol. You wouldn't drive drunk, would you? So don't drive tired. Fatigue causes another symptom that can be even more deadly: highway hypnosis. We've all had it happen. You're driving along a dull stretch of highway and nothing to look at, nothing to hold your attention. The mile markers just keep passing by. Then you suddenly realize you don't remember the last 10 miles. Experts call this dangerous phenomenon driving without awareness, or DWA syndrome. It can happen even when you're well rested, but more often it comes with fatigue. The problem is, you may not come out of the trance until your mind finally registers a hazard ahead, and then it may be too late to react appropriately and safely. The key factors contributing to fatigue-related CMV accidents are the duration of sleep during your last sleep period, the amount of sleep you got in the previous 24 hours, and whether the sleep is continuous or interrupted.
Sleep debt causes a person to not be as aware of their surroundings, and therefore they may be awake but they're not alert, and that during times of boredom can cause them to fall asleep when they had no intention of falling asleep.
The problem with fatigue is a driver suffering fatigue, he starts tunneling out. Normally a driver needs to be able to see 360 degrees around, mirror checks, traffic checks. He has to have very good vision, very good eye movement. One of the first things that happen when a driver gets fatigued is he loses that ability. He starts tunneling. If he allows it to go long enough, next thing he knows, the only thing he's doing is looking out the left windshield.
If I'm tired, I will definitely lay down and sleep for a period of time, 20 minutes or so. Usually refreshes you and gets you feeling better. Trying not to start out fatigued in the first place is very important.
Mostly I deal with fatigue by finding a place and taking a nap, getting sleep.
Lack of sleep is the #1 factor leading to driver fatigue. How are your sleeping habits? Consider how each of the following aspects of sleep might help you get a better night's rest. First, let's talk about sleep debt.
Sleep debt is the time when you don't get enough sleep. It usually builds up over time, and people in this country are always behind on their sleep. And it takes a long time to get back to where you have fulfilled that sleep debt. It doesn't just happen with one night of sleep. It takes a long time to get that back, probably 2 nights of good sleep to actually replace that sleep debt.
Most adults need between 7 and 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep to feel well rested. Some may need more. If you don't get enough sleep, you may be able to function fine for a couple of days, but soon sleep debt can develop. The longer you go without enough sleep, the more you'll need to catch up. There's no way around sleep debt other than getting the sleep your body is craving. Unfortunately, you can't build up a bank of sleep time and then expect to go without.
That's just a matter of the driver being disciplined, realizing that if I got to drive all night, I've got to sleep sometime during the day. That kind of goes against a lot of people's natural body rhythms, or when they're at home, against the schedule of the family. But if you have to roll at midnight, somewhere around 4 in the afternoon, you better be looking for some sleep.
If you don't get enough sleep, you tend to be more tense. When you get plenty of sleep, you're relaxed, and on the longer hauls, of course, it helps you to stay awake, to be more alert, I guess is the best term.
Proper rest, when it's a 10-hour break, don't go be sitting in a truck stop playing video machines. Get your rest, because you need it.
We're creatures of habit, us humans, more than we realize. Our circadian rhythm, or our body's internal clock, tells us when and how much sleep we need. Most people's clocks run on a 24-hour period. Your body expects you to wake up at a certain time, eat at a certain time, and sleep at a certain time. If your schedule changes, say you're in a different time zone, or you change from a day shift to a night shift, your internal clock needs time to adjust to the new schedule, meaning you need to watch out for fatigue. Getting the right kind of sleep is just as important as getting enough sleep. As you sleep, your body goes through different stages, from light to deep sleep. Getting 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep allows your body to get the maximum value that quality sleep provides. Some drivers find that no matter how much sleep they get, they still feel tired. They may be suffering from sleep apnea, a condition that can awaken you hundreds of times during the night as a result of breathing difficulties. If you suspect that you may be suffering from a sleep disorder, consult a physician for treatment. Here are some tips to help you sleep better. Make sure the room is a comfortable temperature. Exercise early in the day to help sleep at night. Don't do it right before bed. Avoid heavy meals, caffeine, and alcohol before trying to sleep. And if you can't get to sleep right away, just get up and find something quiet to do until you feel drowsy. And what about how you spend your off-duty time? We all have things we enjoy doing, plus responsibilities that we need to take care of. But do you plan enough time for sleeping when you're off duty? Instead of doing things that will wear you out right before a trip, like rushing to get yard work or housework done, plan relaxing activities so you aren't stressed out at the end of your rest time. Fatigue is commonly considered a physical problem, but stress can be a big contributor too. You may not even feel physically tired, but stress can tire you out mentally and emotionally, making you feel drained. As stress builds up, you become distracted. Keeping things bottled up only makes the problem worse, and soon you lose concentration, alertness, and stamina. Different people battle stress in different ways, but there are a lot of things you can do to take the edge off. Consider exercising, talking to another driver or a friend, taking a walk, listening to music, or building something. Whatever you do, recognize stress for what it is and do something to take the pressure off.
I think the biggest key to stress is communication. When you have a problem, you work that problem out. You talk to your management, talk to your dispatch, but you have to understand that there's certain problems in trucking, and you have to deal with those problems, and you have to make that part of your daily routine.
Sometimes stress can bring out the best in a driver, like when white-knuckle weather conditions force you to be more aware of everything going on around you. But once the need to be alert passes, you may experience stress-induced fatigue, a condition that leads to mistakes. A driver might travel for hours through a blinding snowstorm, then end up in a ditch just a few miles from home. Letting down your guard too soon is an easy mistake, and one you should be careful to avoid. Driving fatigued can be deadly, both for you and others on the road. Fatigue is one of the top contributors to accidents involving injuries and fatalities. So how do you recognize when it's time to take a break? Here are 4 signs that it's time to pull over immediately. Your eyes occasionally lose focus. You yawn frequently or repeatedly. You make stupid mistakes like missing your exit. You experience highway hypnosis. And here are some signs that you've crossed the line and shouldn't be on the road at all. You find yourself weaving or drifting across lanes. Your eyes start to play tricks on you. An exit ramp might look like your lane, or a road sign may look like a person. You see phantom vehicles and jerk to attention, wondering what just happened. You can't concentrate for more than a few seconds. Your eyelids feel unbearably heavy, occasionally even closing by themselves. Or your head falls toward your chest and you may actually doze off. If you wait for these symptoms of fatigue before pulling off, you're putting your life in jeopardy. The true professional stops for a break before endangering lives. And you're not the only one who gets tired on the road. Keep an eye out for the people out there with you, too. If you notice another driver suffering from fatigue, don't be afraid to let him or her know that no one in that condition belongs on the road. What can you do to avoid fatigue? Use common sense techniques, like planning your routes to minimize driving and allow time for breaks, operating your vehicle smoothly, cutting down on rough shifting, hard turns, and sudden braking, avoiding caffeine on the road. It'll pick you up for a while, but leave you even more tired than before. If you wear glasses, make sure your prescription is current. Also, use sunglasses in sunny weather and keep your windshield clean. Eye strain can lead to tension headaches, which can lead to fatigue. Eat healthy meals on the road. Foods high in fat, carbohydrates, or calories, but low in nutrition can make you feel tired. And of course, get plenty of sleep. When you've been on the road for a while and you begin to feel fatigued, remember this. No matter how many years you've been driving a CMV or how many miles you've logged, you're not a machine. You're human, and you need sleep. You know it takes a sharp mind and steady hand to control your vehicle. So when you consider going just a little farther before you rest, ask yourself, is it really worth it?
As a commercial motor vehicle driver, you'll log a lot of miles on the road and under a variety of conditions. However, after many hours of driving, fatigue sets in, which can lead to bad decisions and, unfortunately, crashes. One way to avoid fatigue is to follow the hours of service regulations, which specify the maximum allowable on-duty and driving time. Originally created over 60 years ago, the hours of service regulations were designed to keep tired drivers off the road. All motor carriers and drivers operating commercial motor vehicles must follow the regulations located in Part 395 of the FMCSR. These regulations are based on the idea that if you drive too long, you get tired and dangerous. No one, not the DOT, your dispatcher, other drivers, your family, no one wants tired drivers on the road. That's why millions of drivers like you are required to follow the hours of service regulations, including completing a record of duty status or driver's daily log, so it's accurate, legible, and legal. Violations of these regulations carry tough legal consequences for both you and your carrier. The DOT takes them seriously, and so should you. Logging errors and exceeding legal hours of service represent the largest group of cited violations by the DOT in compliance reviews, and they're not cheap. In fact, drivers like you and companies like yours have been fined more than $300,000 for violations. Recording all driving, on-duty, and off-duty time is a required part of the job. Logging, tracking hours of service, helps you stay in compliance and keeps you within your legal hours of service limitations. If you don't keep up your log, or if you falsify it, you could be placed out of service and face costly fines. More importantly, violating these regulations threatens your safety and the safety of everyone who shares the road with you.
The hours of service regulations are meant to provide the opportunity for you to get the rest you need. They're a CMV driver's friend, not an enemy. So be sure you understand the hours of service regulations, including exceptions, and how they can be safely applied. Also keep in mind that completing your record of duty status so it's accurate, legible, and legal is required to comply with the regulations.
Hours of service are critical because it's a line in the sand where, it's a lot of drivers have a problem with it. They say, well, I could drive more, and others have a problem, well, I have a hard time making that. It's kind of a line for everybody to follow. And it keeps the fatigue driver from getting on the road. And that's the whole goal of the hours of service. And one of the things drivers need to understand is they're there for their protection, because if the industry didn't have the hours of service regulations, the demands that we placed on the drivers would be astronomical as far as what would be expected of them.
They're important so that drivers are not abused. And so drivers have to operate within these parameters. Not all drivers like the parameters, but the bottom line is the parameters are there. They're there to help the driver stay safe, to help the driver stay sharp, and to help the driver plan their week, where they can go and how much they can do.
There's just one more important topic to cover: whistleblower protection. Just what is whistleblower protection, and why is it important to driver safety? Basically, whistleblower protection laws are in place to protect you from retaliation if you report vehicle safety violations to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA. You're also protected if you testify before the FMCSA, or if you refuse to operate an unsafe vehicle, drive in conditions that could cause serious bodily injury, or violate a vehicle safety law. Safety laws include hours of service requirements, which we discussed earlier. These laws are important for obvious reasons. If there are unsafe or hazardous conditions, they need to be corrected to prevent injury to you and to others. But they need to be brought to someone's attention before they can be corrected. If you make a vehicle safety complaint and it results in termination of employment, demotion, an undesirable reassignment, loss of seniority, loss of personal leave, or any other form of discrimination, you can file a complaint with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, or you can have someone file it on your behalf. Here's how it works. Complaints should be filed with the OSHA area director in the area where you live or work. A complaint should be filed within 180 days of when the discrimination occurred. However, there are situations where the time limit will be waived. Check with your OSHA area director if you have a question about timing. There are no special forms to use, just send a letter stating your situation. From there, OSHA will provide a copy of the complaint to your employer, protecting your confidentiality if necessary. Then, OSHA will gather data and give your employer 20 days to respond to the complaint. If OSHA finds reasonable cause to believe the violation is valid, they'll continue to pursue your case until the situation is resolved.
The whistleblower is something that is required and necessary because of companies that take shortcuts and try and cut corners.
I think they're important from the standpoint that drivers with carriers, trucking companies that don't care, and they're being pushed beyond their limits, can actually call someone and somebody can come in and investigate those carriers, where in the past that wasn't really out there for the drivers. So I think today it gives them that, it should give them that feeling behind themselves that they know that there's another agency out there that does care.
The main thing to remember is, if you've got a safety concern, it's critical to report it to protect yourself and others. Whistleblower protection laws are there, so you can do your job with peace of mind. As a CMV driver, your safety is in everyone's interest. Yours, your family's, your employers, and the driving public's. Safe drivers are an asset to employers because they help keep insurance rates down and contribute to better service to customers. Following the practices reviewed in this video, maintaining good health, avoiding fatigue, following the hours of service regulations can help make you feel better, drive safer, and handle the stresses of your job easier. Not to mention that it can help you become more valuable to your employer. So on behalf of your family, your employer, and those who share the road with you, thanks for driving safely.